The Apache warrior dragged her to his fire. She found his hands softer than any prayer. The rope bit into Nellie's wrists as the Apache warrior dragged her through the salt flats. No gag, no blindfold, just the wind screaming in her ears and the taste of blood on her tongue. She expected a knife. A grave. Silence. Instead, he stopped, built a fire, and handed her water like she was something sacred. And that's when she knew, this wasn't a kidnapping. It was a reckoning. Her boots had given out 10 miles back. Now, barefoot and bleeding, Nellie Carver stumbled forward, yanked by the thick rope tied to the warrior's saddle horn. Each step sent shards of pain up her calves. The desert sun, white-hot and pitiless, pressed down like a branding iron. Her dress, once blue calico, now gray with dust and sweat, clung to her ribs like a second skin. She didn't cry. Didn't beg. Just breathed through clenched teeth, eyes fixed on the back of the man who stole her from the homestead at dawn. He never looked back. Not when she tripped. Not when she gasped. Not even when the buzzards began to circle, lazy and patient, high above the cracked earth. His horse, a paint stallion with a crooked blaze, moved like it knew the land by heart. And maybe it did. Maybe they both did. The warrior himself. Tall. Lean. Sun-browned skin stretched tight over sharp cheekbones. A single eagle feather tied to his braided hair. No war paint. No shouting. Just silence. Thick and heavy as a burial shroud. When the sun dipped low, painting the sky in bruises of purple and rust, he finally stopped. Nellie collapsed. Her knees hit the dirt with a thud that echoed in her hollow chest. She waited for the knife. Waited for the rope to tighten. Waited for the end. Instead, he dismounted. Slowly. Deliberately. He untied the rope from his saddle, then from her wrists, not gentle, but not cruel. Just, efficient. She stared up at him, throat too dry to speak, eyes burning with dust and dread. He met her gaze. No hatred there. No hunger. Just, something unreadable. Something old. Then he turned. Walked 10 paces. Dug into his saddlebag. Came back with flint, steel, and dry brush. And built a fire. Right there. In the middle of nowhere. As the flames licked upward, painting his face in gold and shadow, he pulled out a canteen. Uncorked it. Held it out to her. She didn't move. He didn't push. Just knelt there, arm extended, eyes locked on hers. The smell of smoke curled between them. The fire popped. Somewhere far off, a coyote yipped, lonely, hungry. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the canteen. The metal was warm from his grip. She drank. Water, clean, cool, life-giving, spilled down her chin, soaked into the collar of her ruined dress. She drank like a woman who'd forgotten what mercy tasted like. When she lowered the canteen, he took it back. Didn't drink. Just set it beside him. Then he pulled out dried venison. Broke it in half. Offered her the larger piece. She took it. Ate in silence. Watched him. Watched the fire. Watched the way his hands moved, calloused, scarred, but careful. Precise. Like a man who knew the weight of things. He didn't speak. Didn't try to. Just fed the fire. Fed her. Watched the horizon. And when the stars came out, cold and countless, he lay down on the far side of the flames, his back to her, his rifle within arm's reach. Nellie didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every rustle of wind. Every crackle of ember. Every breath he took, steady, even, sent her pulse hammering. Why? Why take her? Why feed her? Why not kill her? The questions coiled in her gut like snakes. And then, she saw it. In the firelight, as he shifted in his sleep, his left hand curled near his chest. 3 long scars ran across his knuckles, old, silvered, deep. Not from a blade. From rope. From hanging. Her breath caught. He hadn't taken her to punish her. He'd taken her, because someone else needed punishing. And he knew she was the key. The fire dimmed. The desert held its breath. Somewhere out there, the men who burned her home were still riding. Still laughing. Still thinking they'd buried the truth with the ashes. They were wrong. Because now, she wasn't alone. And the man who dragged her into the wild. He wasn't her captor. He was her vengeance. Wrapped in silence. Forged in fire. Wind howls softly. Coyote cries in distance. She didn't know his name yet. Didn't know his pain. Didn't know the graves he carried in his chest. But by dawn, she'd follow him anywhere. Even into hell. 3 nights. No words. Just firelight, the scent of sage, and the unbearable softness in his hands as he carved her a bird from riverwood. Nellie hated him less each dawn. And that terrified her more than the rope ever did. Because when the raiders came at midnight, blades drawn, eyes wild, she didn't run. She stood between them and him. And whispered a prayer she didn't believe in, for a man whose name she still didn't know. The second night, she slept. Not deeply. Not peacefully. But she slept. Curled on her side, back to the fire, her body aching in places she'd forgotten existed. The desert cold crept in after midnight, sharp, sneaky, but she shivered. Once. Twice. Then, warmth. A blanket settled over her shoulders. Heavy. Woven. Smelling of horsehide and smoke. She didn't move. Didn't open her eyes. But she felt him, standing there, just behind her, close enough that his breath stirred the hair at her nape. He lingered. 1 heartbeat. 2. Then retreated. She waited until his breathing evened out across the fire before she pulled the blanket tighter. Let the heat sink into her bones. Let herself believe, just for a moment, that she wasn't prey. Morning came with the sun bleeding over the eastern ridge. She woke to the smell of roasting rabbit. He was already up. Crouched by the fire, turning meat on a spit, his face unreadable in the dawn haze. When he saw her stir, he didn't speak. Just nodded toward a tin cup steaming beside him. Coffee? Real coffee? She sat up slowly, joints protesting, and reached for it. The heat seared her palms. The smell, bitter, rich, achingly familiar, brought tears to her eyes. Her father used to brew it strong enough to strip paint. She sipped. Burned her tongue. Didn't care. Across the fire, the warrior watched her. Not with hunger. Not with pity. With curiosity. Assessment. She met his gaze. Held it. Then, deliberately, she raised the cup in a silent toast. He blinked. Once. Then looked away. But she saw it, the ghost of something at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile. Not yet. But the shadow of one. By midday, they moved again. Not far. Just to a shallow creek where the water ran clear over smooth stones. He let her wash, turned his back without being asked, stood guard 20 paces upstream, rifle resting against his shoulder. She scrubbed the grime from her skin with trembling hands. Washed her hair. Rinsed her dress as best she could. The water was cold enough to steal her breath, but it felt like baptism. Like shedding the woman she'd been. The woman who screamed when the raiders came. The woman who hid under the bed while her brother fought. The woman who lived, because she was forgotten. Now. Now she was seen. By him. And that was more dangerous than any blade. That night, he carved. Sitting cross-legged by the fire, a block of pale river wood in his lap, a small knife moving in slow, sure strokes. Shavings curled to the ground like whispered secrets. She watched. Couldn't help it. His hands, those scarred, strong hands, moved with a tenderness that made her throat tight. "What is it?" she finally asked. Her voice cracked. "Dust dry. Unused." He didn't look up. Didn't stop carving. But his fingers hesitated. Just for a breath. Then he kept going. She waited. The fire popped. A moth fluttered too close to the flame, sizzled, died. Still, he didn't speak. She almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she hummed. Softly. An old hymn her mother used to sing, "Come thou fount of every blessing." Her voice was rough. Off-key. But she sang it anyway. And when she glanced up, he was watching her. Not the wood. Not the fire. Her. His eyes, dark, deep, endless, held hers. And in them, something broke. Just a little. He looked back at the wood. Finished his carving. Held it out. A bird. Small. Delicate. Wings half spread, as if caught mid-flight. She took it. Felt the smooth curves under her fingertips. Looked up. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded. Still silent. But this time, he held her gaze. And she knew, he understood every word she didn't say. Midnight came with teeth. She woke to the sound of hoofbeats. Not one horse. 3. 4. Crashing through the brush, reckless, drunk on moonlight and violence. She sat bolt upright. Across the fire, he was already on his feet. Rifle in hand. Body coiled. Eyes scanning the dark. Shadows moved between the trees. Laughter, rough, cruel, cut through the night. "Smell that smoke, boys. Someone's cookin'. Hope they got whiskey too. Or a woman." Nellie's blood turned to ice. She knew that voice. Jed Rollins. Sheriff's deputy. Drunkard. Braggart. The man who'd winked at her at the general store 3 days before her homestead burned. The man who'd ridden away laughing while the flames ate her home. Now he was here. And he wasn't alone. She scrambled to her feet. The warrior stepped in front of her. Not blocking her view. Protecting it. His back was to her. But she saw his shoulders tense. Saw his finger curl around the trigger. Saw the way he shifted his weight, ready to kill. "No," she breathed. He didn't turn. Didn't flinch. "Please," she whispered, stepping forward, her hand brushing his arm. "Let me." He went still. Then, slowly, he lowered the rifle. Just an inch. Enough. She stepped around him. Into the firelight. Where they could see her. Where they could recognize her. The hoofbeats stopped. Silence. Then, "Well, I'll be damned," Jed drawled, reining his horse to a stop 10 feet away. "If it ain't little Nellie Carver. Thought you was Ash, girl." He grinned. Yellow teeth. Bloodshot eyes. Behind him, 2 other men, strangers, rough-looking, reeking of cheap whiskey, hooped and nudged each other. "Look what the coyotes dragged in." "Maybe she dragged him in," one sneered, jerking his chin toward the warrior. "Savage got himself a pet." Jed's grin widened. "You been breakin' her in, redskin? Or just keepin' her warm?" The warrior didn't move. Didn't speak. But Nellie felt the heat coming off him. Felt the rage vibrating in his bones. She stepped forward again. Right into the circle of firelight. Right into their line of sight. "Jed Rollins," she said, voice clear, cold, steady. "You don't want to do this." He laughed. "Oh, sugar. I been wantin' to do this since the day I saw you bend in over that wash basin." He swung down from his horse. Drew his revolver. Not at the warrior. At her. "Let's see how loud you scream without a roof over your head." The hammer clicked back. Nellie didn't flinch. Didn't run. She just stood there. And smiled. Because behind Jed, the warrior moved. Like shadow. Like smoke. Like death wearing moccasins. Jed never saw him coming. One moment, he was leering at Nellie. The next, his wrist snapped sideways with a sickening crack, the revolver flying into the dirt. He screamed. The warrior didn't. Just twisted Jed's arm behind his back, shoved him face first into the dust, and pressed a knee between his shoulder blades. The other two men froze. Hands hovering near their guns. Eyes wide. The warrior looked up. Met their gazes. One by one. And without a word, they backed their horses away. Turned. Rode off into the dark. Leaving Jed. Leaving Nellie. Leaving the fire. And the silence. Jed whimpered into the dirt. The warrior leaned down. Spoke for the first time. 2 words. Low. Guttural. Filled with the weight of 1,000 unsung deaths. Running wolf. Then he stood. Looked at Nellie. And nodded. Not to her. To the knife at her belt, the one she'd picked up from the dirt when Jed fell. The one she'd been ready to use. She let it drop. Nodded back. The fire burned low. The desert held its breath. And for the first time since her world burned, Nellie Carver felt safe. Owl hoots. Wind stirs embers. He had a name now. And she? She had a purpose. Redemption Creek didn't welcome her back, it recoiled. Doors slammed. Children were pulled inside. The sheriff spat her name like poison. But when Nellie walked down Main Street with Running Wolf at her side, silent, tall, unbroken, the town didn't see a rescued woman. They saw a traitor. And when she spotted her sister's locket around the sheriff's neck, she knew why they burned her home. Why they let the Apache hang. Why they called it justice. It wasn't revenge they feared. It was the truth. The town smelled like guilt. Wood smoke and whiskey, yes, but underneath? Rot. The kind that clings to floorboards and tongues. The kind no rain can wash away. Nellie walked down Main Street barefoot still, her dress patched with river grass and stubborn pride, Running Wolf 3 steps behind her, silent as a shadow at noon. They didn't speak. Didn't need to. Every eye that turned their way told the story. Mrs. Hargrove, the baker's wife, dropped her basket of rolls and scurried inside, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. Young Tommy Reeves, who used to chase Nellie's brother with sticks and laughter, froze mid-step, then bolted down an alley, his face white as flour. Even the dogs stopped barking. Only the wind dared make noise, whistling through the empty hitching posts, tugging at the faded wanted posters nailed to the saloon wall. One of them still bore Running Wolf's face. Dead or alive. 500, for the murder of Sheriff Calhoun and 3 deputies. Beneath it, someone had scrawled in charcoal, liar. Nellie kept walking. Her pulse hammered, but her chin stayed high. She felt him behind her, not looming, not threatening, just present. Solid. Like a mountain that refused to be moved by whispers. They reached the general store. The bell above the door jingled, too cheerful, too loud. Inside, Old Man Pettigrew stood behind the counter, polishing a glass with a rag that hadn't been cleaned since last winter. He looked up. Saw her. Saw him. The glass slipped from his fingers. Shattered on the floor. Nellie Carver, he breathed. Sweet Lord above, you're alive. She stepped forward. I need boots. A coat. And coffee. Strong. He didn't move. Just stared past her, at Running Wolf, who stood just inside the doorway, arms crossed, eyes scanning the shelves like he was memorizing escape routes. You brought him here. Pettigrew whispered. I didn't bring him, Nellie said, voice flat. He brought me. And I'm paying. Silver. Not charity. She dropped 2 coins on the counter. Pettigrew didn't touch them. Girl, you don't understand. The sheriff can kiss my dust-cracked heels, she snapped. I lost my home. My brother. Everything. And you're worried about manners? Pettigrew flinched. Behind her, Running Wolf shifted. Just a step. But it was enough. Pettigrew's eyes darted to him, then back to Nellie. You best leave, he muttered. Before he comes. Let him come, Nellie said. She turned. Looked at Running Wolf. He met her gaze. Nodded once. They left the coins on the counter. Walked out. Outside, the street was empty. Windows shuttered. Doors barred. Only the creak of the saloon sign, the rusty spur, broke the silence. And then, boots. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming from the sheriff's office. Nellie turned. So did Running Wolf. Sheriff Elias Granger stepped onto the boardwalk. Tall. Barrel-chested. Mustache waxed into cruel points. His duster flapped in the wind like the wings of a carrion bird. And around his neck. A locket. Silver. Oval. Engraved with tiny roses. Nellie's breath stopped. Clara's locket. Her little sister. 12 years old. Last seen wearing it the night the raiders came. The night the town called an Apache massacre. The night they buried 6 bodies, all white, and called it justice. The night they strung up 3 Apache men from the old oak and left them swinging for a week. Nellie Carver, the sheriff drawled, thumbs hooked in his belt. Back from the dead. And consortant with the devil himself, I see. He didn't look at Running Wolf. Didn't need to. His hatred was a living thing, thick in the air, sour as spoiled milk. Nellie stepped forward. Where did you get that locket, Sheriff? Granger's hand went to it instinctively. Closed around it. Found it. After the raid. Souvenir. Liar. The word cracked like a whip. Granger's eyes narrowed. You watch your tongue, girl. You spent 3 nights in his camp. Who's to say you didn't help him butcher your own kin? Running Wolf moved. Not toward Granger. Toward Nellie. Placed himself between them. Not hiding her. Shielding her. Granger smirked. See? He protects you. Like a dog protects its master. Or maybe, like a husband protects his whore. Running Wolf didn't flinch. Didn't speak. But his hand, slow, deliberate, rested on the tomahawk at his belt. Granger saw it. His smirk faded. Get out of my town, he growled. Both of you. By sundown. Or I'll finish what we started. He turned. Walked back inside. The door slammed. Nellie stood frozen. Her hands shook. Not from fear. From rage. From grief. From the terrible, dawning truth. She turned to Running Wolf. He killed them, she whispered. My brother. My sister. He killed them. And blamed you. Blamed your people. Running Wolf looked down at her. His eyes, dark, endless, ancient, held hers. Then he reached into his tunic. Pulled out a folded piece of paper. Old. Stained. Smelling of smoke and sweat. He handed it to her. She unfolded it. A sketch. Drawn in charcoal. 3 white men, faces clear, standing over a burning homestead. One of them. Sheriff Elias Granger. The other 2. Deputies. Jed Rollins. And Bart Crow, the town's blacksmith. At the bottom, scrawled in shaky hand, they wear our faces. They steal our names. They call it justice. We remember. Signed, Running Wolf. Son of Black Bear. Witness. Nellie's knees nearly gave out. She looked up. Met his gaze. You saw it, she breathed. He nodded. Why didn't you stop them? Another nod, slower. Then he pointed to the gallows at the edge of town. Still standing. Ropes still dangling. Beneath them, 3 shallow graves, unmarked. He pointed to himself. Then to the graves. Then to her. They hanged my brothers for what your sheriff did. Her throat closed. She understood. He hadn't taken her to punish her. He'd taken her, to witness. To see the truth. To carry it. To make sure it didn't die with him. She looked back at the sheriff's office. At the locket. At the lies baked into the town's bones. Then she turned to Running Wolf. Took his hand. Scarred. Strong. Steady. I'm not leaving, she said. He didn't smile. Didn't need to. He squeezed her hand. Once. Hard. And in that moment, the war began. Distant church bell tolls, hollow, mournful. The town thought they buried their sins. They were wrong. Some graves refused to stay closed. She stood behind the bar, polishing glasses with shaking hands, the revolver tucked beneath her apron. Running Wolf waited outside, a shadow against the sun-bleached boards. When the sheriff kicked open the saloon doors, drunk and spitting rage, she thought he'd aim at the Apache. She was wrong. The barrel swung toward her. The shot rang out, and Running Wolf moved like lightning. Blood bloomed on his shoulder. Not his first wound. Won't be his last. And as he collapsed, Nellie screamed a name she never thought she'd say in love or war, Running Wolf. The rusty spur smelled like regret. Whiskey fumes thick enough to chew. Sawdust soaked in old blood and older tears. Tobacco smoke curling lazy toward the ceiling, where bullet holes still dotted the rafters like constellations of bad decisions. Nellie stood behind the bar. Not because she wanted to. Because it was the only place in Redemption Creek that still let her in. Old man Harker, the saloon owner, toothless and tired, had grunted when she walked in that morning, Running Wolf waiting silently outside like a sentinel carved from stone. You serve drinks, Harker said. You don't talk. You don't look men in the eye. And if that redskin steps 1 foot over my threshold, I'll shoot him myself. Nellie tied on the apron. Didn't argue. Didn't need to. She knew why he let her stay. Guilt. Same guilt that made Mrs. Lowell leave a loaf of bread on her doorstep every dawn. Same guilt that made Reverend Pike cross the street when he saw her coming. They knew. Not all of it. But enough. Enough to feel the rot in their bones. Enough to fear what she might say. Enough to hope she'd just disappear. But Nellie didn't disappear. She polished glasses. She swept floors. She listened. And she waited. Running Wolf never came inside. Didn't ask to. Just stood across the street, beneath the awning of the abandoned livery, arms crossed, eyes never leaving the saloon doors. Watching. Waiting. Protecting. The townsfolk pretended not to see him. Pretended not to notice how the air thickened when he was near. Pretended not to remember the 3 bodies that still swung from the gallows the week before the first snow. But Nellie saw. She saw the way mothers pulled their children closer when they passed him. Saw the way men's hands drifted toward their gun belts. Saw the way Sheriff Granger's eyes burned every time he rode past, slow, deliberate, like a man savoring the thought of a hanging. Today. Today was different. She felt it in the air. Heavy. Electric. Like the moment before a storm breaks. She'd just set down a tray of whiskey glasses when the doors burst open. Not pushed. Kicked. Wood splintered. Hinges screamed. Sheriff Elias Granger filled the doorway. Not alone. Jed Rollins, wrist still wrapped in a dirty bandage, and Bart Crow, the blacksmith, his knuckles scarred from more than forging iron. All 3 reeked of whiskey and sweat. All 3 wore guns. And all 3 were looking at her. The saloon fell silent. Cards froze mid-deal. Glasses paused halfway to lips. Even old man Harker stopped wiping the bar. Granger stepped inside. Boots thudding on the floorboards like a death march. "You," he said, pointing at Nellie. "Get out here." She didn't move. Didn't speak. Just met his gaze. Cold. Steady. Unbroken. Granger's lip curled. "You think you're safe in here? Think that devil outside is gonna save you?" He took another step. "Let me tell you something, girl. That locket? That was payment. Payment for keepin' your mouth shut. Payment for lettin' us call it an Indian raid. Payment for lettin' us hang them savages so the town could sleep at night." He was close now. Close enough that she could smell the rot on his breath. Close enough that she could see the flecks of tobacco stuck in his teeth. Close enough that she could feel the heat of his rage. "But you," he sneered. "You had to come back. Had to bring him back. Had to stir up ghosts we buried." He drew his revolver. Slow. Deliberate. The hammer clicked back. And then, he swung the barrel. Not toward the door. Not toward Running Wolf. Toward her. "I should have killed you that night," he hissed. "Should have put you in the ground with your sniveling sister." Time slowed. Nellie saw the tremor in his finger. Saw the madness in his eyes. Saw the locket, Clara's locket, glinting against his chest. She didn't reach for the revolver beneath her apron. Didn't scream. Didn't beg. She just smiled. Because she knew. He wasn't shooting to kill. He was shooting to silence. And that? That was his mistake. The shot rang out. Loud. Brutal. Echoing off the walls like a curse. But Nellie didn't fall. Didn't scream. Didn't feel the bullet. Because in that heartbeat, that sliver of time between trigger pull and impact, he moved. Running Wolf. Fast. Furious. Fierce. He crashed through the saloon doors like a storm-given flesh. Shouldered Jed aside. Slammed into Granger. The bullet meant for Nellie's heart. It tore into Running Wolf's shoulder instead. Blood, bright, shocking, alive, bloomed across his tunic. He grunted. Staggered. But didn't fall. Didn't drop. Just turned. Eyes blazing. Tomahawk in hand. Granger stumbled back, eyes wide with terror. No. Nellie screamed. She didn't think. Didn't plan. Just moved. Between them. Facing running wolf. Hands pressed to his chest. Don't, she whispered. Don't kill him. Not like this. Not here. He looked down at her. Blood dripped from his shoulder. His breath came fast. But his eyes? Clear. Calm. Listening. Behind her, Granger scrambled back, fumbling for his fallen revolver. Jed and Bart stood frozen, caught between fear and fury. The saloon held its breath. Nellie didn't turn. Didn't look. Just kept her hands on Running Wolf's chest. Felt his heartbeat, strong. Steady. Alive. His name, she said, voice trembling but clear. Say it. Say his name. Running Wolf looked past her, at Granger. At the men who burned her home. At the town that buried the truth. Then he spoke. One word. Low. Guttural. Sacred. Running Wolf. Nellie turned. Looked at Granger. You hear that? She said. His name. Not savage. Not devil. Running Wolf. And he didn't burn my home. He didn't kill my sister. You did. Granger's face twisted. He raised his revolver again. This time, Nellie moved. Fast. Furious. Fierce. She yanked the revolver from beneath her apron. Pressed it to Granger's forehead. Drop it, she said. He didn't. His finger twitched. She cocked the hammer. I said, drop it. A beat. 2. Then, the revolver clattered to the floor. Nellie lowered the revolver. Turned. Looked at Running Wolf. He was swaying. Blood soaked his tunic. His face was pale. But he was smiling. Just a little. Just for her. She caught him as his knees buckled. Held him. Felt his weight, heavy, warm, real, against her chest. Help me, she said to no one. And then, to everyone. Old man Harker moved first. Then a miner. Then the bartender. Then 2 farmers. They carried Running Wolf to the back room. Laid him on a cot. Nellie tore open his tunic. The wound was clean, through and through, but deep. She pressed a cloth to it. He hissed. Didn't pull away. Just watched her. Eyes half-lidded. Tired. Trusting. I'm not gonna let you die, she whispered. He reached up. Touched her cheek. Scarred fingers brushing her skin. Then he closed his eyes. And slept. Wind rattles the window. Distant coyote howls. Outside, the town held its breath. Inside. Nellie held him. And for the first time since the fire. She wasn't afraid. They buried him at dawn, beneath a twisted mesquite, no preacher, no stone, just Nellie's trembling voice singing, Amazing Grace, to the desert wind. The sheriff's body. Left for the buzzards. The town. Scattered like dust. She didn't weep when she found the mass grave behind the mine, 12 Apache bones tangled with her sister's dress. She planted wildflowers instead. Red ones. Like the ones he used to leave by her bedroll. Love didn't save them. But it damned the men who tried to break them. And sometimes, that's enough. He died at sunrise. Not with a gasp. Not with a curse. Not even with a name on his lips. Just, stillness. One moment, his chest rose, shallow, ragged, stubborn. The next. Nothing. Nellie felt it before she saw it. The warmth in his hand faded first. Then the weight of his breath against her shoulder. Then the light behind his eyelids, gone. She didn't scream. Didn't cry. Just pressed her forehead to his, breathing in the last of him, sage and smoke and iron blood, and whispered the only prayer she had left. Thank you. Old man Harker stood in the doorway, hat in hand. The miners who'd carried him in. Gone. The farmers. Vanished. Even Jed and Bart, ordered to dig the graves at dawn, had slipped away in the night, leaving only hoofprints and cowardice behind. Nellie didn't blame them. Fear was a language this town spoke fluently. She stood. Washed his face with clean water. Combed his hair with her fingers. Tied his eagle feather back into place. Then she wrapped him in the blanket he'd given her on the second night, the one that smelled like horsehide and mercy. She carried him herself. Out the back. Past the gallows, where the rope still swayed, empty now, cut down by her own hands the night before. Past the church, its doors locked, its bell silent. Past the graves of her brother and sister, small mounds, unmarked, forgotten. To the edge of town. Where the desert began. Where the earth was red. Where the wind didn't judge. She dug the grave with a rusted shovel she stole from the livery. Her hands blistered. Her back screamed. Her tears. None came. Not yet. She lowered him in at first light. No coffin. No hymn, not yet. Just silence. And the sigh of the wind through the mesquite. She covered him. Patted the earth. Then sat back on her heels. And sang. Voice cracked. Off-key. Raw. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, the coyotes paused their howling. The buzzards circled lower. Even the sun seemed to hold its breath. She sang until her throat bled. Until the words ran out. Until there was nothing left but silence, and him. She didn't go back to town. Didn't need to. By noon, the story had spread, carried on the wings of fear and awe. Sheriff Granger. Found face down in the street, revolver still in hand, eyes wide with terror. No one claimed his body. No one dared. Jed Rollins. Rode out at dawn, headed west, glancing over his shoulder every mile. Bart Crow. Locked himself in his smithy, drunk and weeping, until his wife packed their children and left without him. The preacher. Resigned. The schoolteacher. Gone. Redemption Creek. Emptying. Like a wound finally draining. Nellie didn't care. She saddled the paint stallion, running Wolf's horse, and rode east. Not running. Not hiding. Searching. She found the mine 2 days later. Abandoned. Collapsing. Hidden behind a ridge no one rode past unless they meant to disappear. She tied the horse. Walked in. The smell hit her first. Old death. Dry bone. Dust that had swallowed screams. She dug with her hands. At first. Then with a broken pickaxe she found leaning against the wall. One body. Then another. Then a child, small. Fragile. Wrist bones thin as twigs. 12 in all. Apache. Men. Women. A boy no older than 10, still clutching a carved wooden horse. And then, beneath them. Tangled in the roots. A dress. Faded blue calico. Torn. Stained. But unmistakable. Clara's dress. Nellie sank to her knees. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just gathered the bones. Gently. Reverently. Like she was tucking them into bed. She carried them outside. Laid them in the sun. Then rode back to town. Stole seeds from the general store. Marigolds. Poppies. Crimson sage. She planted them around the grave. Red. All red. Like the wildflowers running wolf used to leave beside her bedroll, silent gifts, blooming in the dust. She didn't mark the grave with a name. Didn't need to. The flowers would speak for her. The wind would carry the truth. The coyotes? They'd howl it at night. She rode out at dusk. Not looking back. The paint stallion knew the way, north, toward the mountains, toward land no sheriff claimed, no preacher cursed, no grave could hold. At her hip? His knife. In her pocket? The wooden bird he carved her. In her chest? Him. Always him. She didn't know if she was free. Didn't know if she was forgiven. Didn't know if the world would ever call her by her name again without spitting. But she knew this, she had loved a man the world called savage. And he had loved her back, with silence, with fire, with sacrifice. And when the men who burned her home came for her, he stood between them. Not as a warrior. Not as a ghost. But as a man. With a name. With scars. With hands softer than any prayer. Wind rises. Distant train whistle fades into silence. Some say she vanished into the mountains. Others swear they saw her years later, hair silver, back straight, riding beside a band of Apache, her laughter ringing like bells over the canyon. The truth? The truth is simpler. She didn't vanish. She remembered. And in a world built on forgetting, that was the most dangerous thing of all.